Hello students, and I hope everybody's got to know about the results of the end tutorials. All the students have done really good. Hearty congratulations to everyone, all of us. I'm pretty sure next year we're going to have a lot more toppers. So let's begin studying from now only, isn't it? Okay. So anyways, let us quickly start with the chapter, and today we're going to finish it really quickly. So first, let us revise what we did in the previous class, then we'll move ahead with the lecture. All right? So let me first share my screen with you. I hope that everybody is able to see my screen properly. Yes, everyone? Okay. So my dear students, as all of you can see the screen, on the screen I am showing you again the chart of ions and radicals, which I am hoping that everybody has already made this chart at home, which I asked you to. Tell me how many of you have done that? Please raise your hand for the students who have made the chart at home, had kept it the place where you're going to study it regularly every day. Okay, a lot of students, very good. Very nice. Thank you so much. Because students, this chart is very important as far as chemistry is concerned this year as well as next academic year as well. You need to do this. And as we have discussed, this chart is about ions and radicals. Let us quickly have a recap of what is ions and what are radicals. I'm pretty sure everybody knows what are ions and radicals here, but just let me give you a small revision here. Is my voice cracking? I hope I am audible to everyone sitting out there. Loud and always loud. Okay, so we were talking about ions, my dear students. When we talk about ions, we need to know one thing in mind, that ions are charged particles. And when I say charged particles, this charge they might get when they are donating or accepting electrons. So an atom, when it donates electron, it gets a charge which is positive. An atom donates electron, gets a charge which is positive. Similarly, when it accepts an electron, it gets a charge which is negative. And positively charged ions are called as cations. Negatively charged ions are called as anions, which I'm pretty sure everybody sitting out there is clearly knowing. Something new which I taught you last time was radicals. So there might be little confusion in radicals. So let me make it really clear for you. As you can see in this chart here, I have written ions slash radicals. I've written ions slash radicals because both of them mean the same. Both of them mean the same. Positively charged, we give it a radicals. Is it clear, everyone? Positively charged are basic radicals, negatively charged are acidic radicals. Okay, I might assume that my voice might be breaking a little bit because it was little unstable connection from my side, but I hope now everything is clear to you. Now you should not have any internet problem, any connection, because everything is perfect. So we will once again talk about radicals. The ones which are positive radicals are called as basic radicals. The ones which are negative are called as acidic radicals. Under radicals, if you remember, we studied two types. Do you remember the two types of radicals which I taught you last time? Do you remember the two types of radicals? Can anybody tell me the name of the two types of radicals? Acidic and basic, they're correct, but there was one more term which I told in terms of radicals, which can be asked as a definition as well. Yes, very good, Mrinal. It's composite and simple. Composite and simple. Simple radicals, as you can see from the table, are the ones where there is single atom carrying a charge. And composite is the one where there are two atoms combined together and carrying a charge, will be called as composite radical. So I assume that now ions and radicals confusion is clear to everyone. Is everyone through with the concept of ions and radicals? And we have also studied this table. Okay, I hope that you've studied the table. How many of you know this table? I know I'm asking a difficult question, but I'm pretty sure at least one or two students might have studied this. Is there anyone who has studied this table? Anyone? Okay, Mrunal, very good. I have few students here. If if no, it's still okay. Half Arya, very good. I would request everyone to please read this table every day. It is very important. And trust me, once you know this, it will be really simple for you to understand chemistry. It's absolutely fine if you're finding it difficult, because it was difficult for me as well. I did not study this table in one day. It took a lot of time, and then I was able to read it. So it is absolutely fine if you're still not able to do it, but don't leave the practice. At least make sure that every day you are studying one column. And you know what? Once you do reactions every day, once we start doing reactions, you will get the hang of it and you'll be able to do it. So do not panic here. Today I am allowing you to see the table and answer the questions. So I hope everybody has this notebook, textbook with you, or you might be having this chart with you, because today we are going to learn formation of chemical formulas. Okay. I know you all know that, but still let us see what are the few errors which usually students make while they are doing chemical formulas. So I would request everyone to be really careful here, because today we are going to study the basics of chemistry, that is making chemical formulas. So let us quickly go into the theory part of what is exactly about chemical formulas here. So chemical formulae of compounds, my dear students, the characteristic of a compound formed by ionic bonds is that its molecule has two parts. You might be feeling, ma'am, what is all this? We don't know. Let me come to this one word individually here. We all know what is a compound. A compound is formed by two or more elements combined together in fixed proportion. This is what the definition we have learned of a compound. So what's an ionic bond? As you can say, ionic bond is made up of ions. And what are ions? They are cations and anions. These cations and anions, when they interchange their valencies, because of which, a bond is formed between them, and that is called as ionic bond. So these are cations and an anion, that is a basic radical or an acidic radical. And these two are oppositely charged. So whenever you are making a compound, always make sure that you're writing the positive charge first, followed by the negative charge. And the force of attraction between them constitutes the ionic bond. The force which is holding them together is called as the ionic bond. Let me go a little bit out of the topic here. In chemistry, you are going to study two types of bond, my dear students. One is ionic bond, and the other one, yes, you're correct, it is the covalent bond. Ionic bond and covalent bond. Ionic bond is the bond formed by interchanging the valencies, that is a crisscross. And covalent is the one which will be formed by sharing, which is mostly seen in case of carbon. So that is an entire chemistry which we'll be dealing a little later, where we are going to study sharing of electrons. Okay. So here we are only talking about give and take of electron. One is giving, other one is taking, and because of which the atoms which are neutral gets converted into charged particles, which are the ions, and the bond formed between them is called as the ionic bond. And similarly, the name of the ionic bond is going to contain two words. Let us see how are we going to write these two words. The first word will always be the name of the cation, and the second one is always going to be the name of the anion. Let us take an example here, which I think last time also I discussed the same example, where we will discuss about the formula of a compound. We are going to talk about formula of the compound, such as sodium chloride. As you all are having the chart with you, right? So in that chart, you all can see sodium, Na, and chlorine, Cl. So when I am making a compound of sodium chloride, as you can see, the cation is written first and the anion is followed later. So sodium chloride is written by writing the symbol of the cation on the left, and adjoined to it on the right is the symbol of the anion. The charges which is given in the table, like sodium is positively charged 1+, that is monovalent. Chlorine is negatively charged, that is 1-, again monovalent. The charges are not shown through the numbers of the ions. It is written as a subscript. Now we'll understand what is the meaning of subscript here and how do I crisscross to get the formulas. This was about simple radicals, my dear students. When it's simple, like sodium chloride, sodium is also simple radical, chlorine is also simple radical. Both had valencies 1. We crisscrossed and we easily got the formula as NaCl. But what in the case of composite radicals? In case of composite radical, the number is written as a subscript outside the bracket enclosing the symbol. Understand this. I'm going to teach you this when we are doing examples, but try to understand. In the case of composite radical, the number will be written as a subscript, that is at the base, outside the bracket, and I'm enclosing its symbol. Let us see few examples. And this number is obtained easily by the method of cross multiplication of the valencies, which is nothing but interchanging the valencies. So the number which I'm going to get here is by interchanging the valencies. So are you all ready? Let us see the examples here. Yes, my dear students, are you all ready now to solve the examples? Let us try to solve the formulas. And please keep the valency chart, that is the ions and radicals chart, handy with you, because I'm going to ask you few questions as well here. So let us begin with the first one, the simple example of potassium chloride. So from the table, I know potassium is K, which is positive. Chlorine, Cl, is negative. The charges which are positive and negative are required to write the order, that the positive should come first and the negative should be followed later. Otherwise, we don't need any charges here. We only have to write the valencies at the base. Like formula, like valency of chlorine is 1, potassium is 1. Now I'm going to interchange their valencies. K is going to take the valency of Cl and Cl is going to take the valency of K. So when I interchange it, I get the formula as KCl. Is it clear, everyone? Did you all understand how to write the chemical formulas? I know many students are already knowing this. They are very well. You might be feeling it's so simple. Why are you repeating? Because there are so many students sitting in the class. It is not necessary that everybody understands at one go. So I'm going it little slow so that everybody understands clearly, as this is the most important part of chemistry. If you're not able to make the formula, you will not be able to make the chemical reactions. And when we talk about chemistry, the first thing which comes to our mind is chemical reactions, isn't it? So formula potassium chloride, have you all written in your notebooks? Raise your hand and let me know that you have completed writing. I want everybody to write the formulas because you need practice for this. Is it all done? Okay, very good. Moving ahead, let us take another example now. This time, for those who know can do it. For those who do not know can follow my instructions. We are going to write the formula of water. Now, in case of water, you are not going to get any elements from the table. You should know that water contains two elements. And which are the two elements? Hydrogen and oxygen. Now, hydrogen and oxygen valencies are very simple, my dear students. I don't think you need to see the textbook for that. Valency of hydrogen is 1 and oxygen is 2. Interchange the valencies and the formula is H2O. Is it clear, everyone? See, now when there is one, like oxygen is getting the valency 1 from hydrogen, there is no need to mention that 1. 1, it's not supposed to be written, it is already understood. So you're not expected to write the answer as H2O1. Is it clear? You will only write H2O. Is it okay? Has everybody written all this? Shall I give you the next example to try? Tell me how many of you are going to try that? Okay. Let's see. Next example now. I want you all to make the formula of sodium sulfate. Now, I'm not giving you the answer. I want you to try at least once. Try and give me the answer. If you're not able to do it, I'll definitely help you out. Formula of sodium sulfate. I want the formula of sodium sulfate, which I assume that majority of you might have already written in the chat box, and there is some problem with my chat box. Sometimes it appears on the screen, sometimes it disappears. So I'm not able to see your answers, but at least you can check for yourself. And let me give you the answers for those who did not get the answer for sodium sulfate. For those students who are not able to understand what exactly is happening in the class, for them, everybody turn your textbook page number 56, or not, if you've made the chart, refer that chart of the ions and radicals. From that, locate sodium. Sodium symbol is Na, and sulfate. You see, take care, because it's sulfate also and sulfide also. I am taking your sulfate, which is SO4. Now, SO4 is the formula. The 4 which is written as a subscript, that is at the base, is not any number related to valency. The formula of sulfate is only SO4. Just like the formula of sodium is Na, the formula of sulfate is SO4. Is it clear? There is no 4 related to any valency. So the valency is the one which is written on top of SO4, like 2 minus. The number which is written on the top, which is the number 2, that is the valency of sodium, and the charge is negative. Is it clear, everyone? So when you see the table, don't get confused if the number is given as a subscript. That is inclusive in the formula of that radical. Sodium valency is 1, sulfate valency is 2. So when we crisscross, I get the answer as Na2, and as the SO4 is going to get the number 1. Is there any need to mention that number? Is there any need to mention that number? No. So we are only, we are only going to write Na2SO4. This is the answer. Now tell me how many of you got this correct? Tell me how many of you got this correct. Okay, I'm pretty sure I can trust you people, and you can tell me that yes, you might have got this correct very well. So the answer here, what we get is Na2SO4. Are you all ready to do the next one? Will you all try the next one? It's very interesting. You know why it's very interesting? Because we have the valency chart with us, isn't it? It will become difficult when the valency chart is not provided to you. Then you are expected to know it by heart. Today, as we are doing a lot of examples, you can see the valency chart. It will be definitely an practice for you. Come on. Try for calcium. I'm sorry, the spelling is wrong here. It's hydroxide. Please make a correction. It's calcium hydroxide. Are you getting the answer? How many of you got this answer? For calcium hydroxide. I think majority of you would have gone, but I just want to check whether you've written it correctly or not. So please check when I'm giving you the answer here, how the representation of calcium hydroxide has to be done. For calcium we know from the table the symbol is Ca and hydroxide is OH. After we write the symbols, that is Ca and OH, at the base we are going to write their valencies. Valency of calcium is 2 and hydroxide is 1. Valency of calcium is 2 and hydroxide is 1. Now you need to interchange the valencies. When you're interchanging the valencies, calcium is going to get the number 1. So there is no need to mention. But OH, the hydroxide, together is going to get the number 2. So like I mentioned in the previous slide, that we are going to put brackets, and outside the bracket, I am going to write the number. So my answer is going to be Ca bracket OH, and we spell it as twice. As both oxygen and hydrogen are going to get the number 2. But because I don't have to write CaO2H2, I am writing it as CaOH twice. You're always going to read it that way only. So that if anybody is telling you the formula, like CaOH thrice, you should be in the position to write it. Is it clear? Did you understand how we are going to put the brackets? So from this formula, we are clear with that. Calcium is 1 atom. Oxygen is 2 atoms, and hydrogen is also 2 atoms. Do not forget the brackets here. That is very, 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 very important. Has everybody written? I'm sure you might have got the correct answer as well. Let me give a little difficult one. Everybody, please try for magnesium nitrate. Magnesium nitrate. Till then, I'll figure out why I'm not able to see the chat box. Oh, I think the answer only already came up on the screen. Yes, magnesium nitrate. Did you try or did you copy? Did you try? My bad, this is. Anyways, the radicals and the ions and radicals chart is already there with you, so it's already easy for you. I would request that if you don't see the chart and try to answer the question, it'll be really great. And why not when we meet next time, I'll just take a little orals of this table. Is it okay? Oh, no, already nodding. So for magnesium nitrate, let us quickly see the answer here. Magnesium symbol Mg, nitrate is NO3. And from the valency chart, we know that magnesium is valency 2 and nitrate, which is NO3, is valency 1. So when you crisscross this time, magnesium is going to get this number 1 and NO3 together is going to get the number 2. So how am I going to write it? I'm going to write it as Mg, and inside the bracket, NO3 together will come inside the bracket, and outside the bracket you're going to write twice. So the answer becomes MgNO3 twice. Is it clear? What is the answer here? MgNO3 twice. Now genuinely tell me how many of you got this correct. Only those students will raise their hands who got the answer correct. Come on, you can at least tell the truth on online classes, which I doubt. So many students. Very good. Very well. But you know how many students are there in the class today? We have around 300 students. What are the rest of the students doing? Are you all sleeping? Nicely sleeping, putting the earphones and just listening and not writing. Everybody please write when I am teaching this. This is very important.
Who is it, ma'am?
Okay. So let us quickly move ahead with the next example. Come on, try this one. Potassium hydroxide. Who is going to give me the answer for potassium hydroxide? Potassium is K, hydroxide, as we all know, OH. If you are doing all the examples on your own, I'm pretty sure this wouldn't have been difficult for you. So the answer here is KOH. So now we'll do a little quick. I'll not give you much time. I want you to be really quick with this. And you know, few repetitive ones, I'm using it again and again so that it becomes easier. Sodium phosphate. Sodium is already given to you, which is Na. Quickly check from the valency chart about phosphate. Phosphate is, did you all get the answer? Okay, so the answer here is Na is 1, phosphate is PO4 with valency 3. Please make sure phosphate is valency 3. So I get the answer as Na3PO4. Na3PO4. Next one. Ammonium chloride. Ammonium is the only basic composite radical. Others all are simple radicals. And it is not that the other composite radicals does not exist. They do exist, but we have made a list of only few radicals given to us. Ammonium is NH4 and chlorine, everybody is aware, is Cl, which is having valency 1. So when I crisscross, I get the answer as NH4Cl. Now quickly, one more. Potassium nitrate. Potassium is K and nitrate, as we have done before also. Are you all able to catch up with the speed and able to do this? Nitrate is again NO3. Both are valencies 1. So I get the answer as KNO3. Is it okay? Did everybody understand how to make the chemical formulas? Because definitely this question will be asked in the exam. If not a direct question, but when you're doing chemical reactions, you are expected to write the formula on your own. So this is an important and integral part of chemistry and chemical reactions. Once we are done with this, I would request you to now close the valency chart. Now don't see the ions. I can only assume that you're not doing it because you would just try if you're able to do it or not. I'm going to give you a list of few questions, same questions, similar types of chemical formulas. I would expect that you do not see the table and try to answer the questions. Just try to answer it. If you're not able to do it, leave it as it is. Go to the next question and do it. But do not see the chart and give me the answer. And just check for yourself whether you are able to get the answer or not. Is it all right? Will you all try? Are you all ready? Should I give you the questions? Yes? Okay. Let me see how many of you can get the answers without seeing the table. So let us write the chemical formula of the following compounds. Quickly write the question and give me the answer. If you're not knowing, leave it. It's absolutely fine because I'm not going to give you time here. Because if I give you time, you're pretty sure you're going to copy, which I think you still can do it. But just let's try. Calcium carbonate. Come on quickly. Who is going to give me the answer for calcium carbonate? Anyone? Did you all write it in your notebook? Ghatkopar Jay Chavan, can you unmute yourself and give me the answer here? Because you raised your hand, no? Calcium carbonate? Or you don't have the authority to unmute yourself, is that so? Anyways, let's see, you just check for yourself whether you are getting the correct answer or not. Calcium is Ca, carbonate is CO3. Both are having valencies 2. Now here I'm pretty sure you might have done the mistake here that Ca is also 2 and CO3 is also 2. As both the numbers are 2, both the 2 gets cancelled and we get the answer as CaCO3. What is the answer? CaCO3. Is it clear? Did you understand how did we get the answer as CaCO3? You're not supposed to write the 2. Both the 2 will get cancelled as both are the same number. Now come on, give me the answer for sodium bicarbonate. Sodium bicarbonate. Sodium is, I'm sure sodium everybody knows because sodium we have taken Na, and bicarbonate is HCO3. Sodium is having valency 1, HCO3 together having valency 1. When you crisscross, we get the answer as NaHCO3. The question which I'm giving to, this is a textual question. These are the questions which are given in your exercise as well. So if you please able to do it, it'll be very good. You'll be directly solving the exercise questions also. Next one, silver chloride. Now this is a simple one. Silver chloride. Yes, okay. Silver is Ag and chlorine is Cl. So we get the answer as AgCl. Both are having valencies 1. Again, a small error which we usually see in the books of the students is Ag, the symbol is A capital, G small, C capital and Cl small. Don't do this error. Otherwise, again, even if you've written AgCl all capital and even if the symbols are correct, your answer would be wrong. So this kind of errors are not allowed in the exam. Next one, calcium hydroxide. I think this is an easier one because we've already done calcium hydroxide. It is, I'm not giving you much time here. Calcium hydroxide is CaOH twice. CaOH twice. Next one, magnesium oxide. Give me the answer for magnesium oxide. Magnesium symbol. Very good. It is Mg. Oxygen is O. Both are having valencies 2. Both the 2 gets cancelled. So please do not write Mg2O2. It is going to be MgO. As both the valencies are 2, they get cancelled. So I get the answer as MgO. Next one, quickly. Ammonium phosphate. Ammonium phosphate. Ammonium, as I said, is the only basic radical composite one given to you. Ammonium is NH4. Phosphate, like we have done in the previous case here also, PO4. When you crisscross, you get the answer as NH4 thrice PO4. Here, there are chances that you might do little errors, but go very slow when you're doing such questions. Ammonium, the formula is NH4. The formula, listen to me carefully. The formula is NH4, which is having valency 1. And phosphate is having the formula PO4. Is having the formula PO4 and valency 3. And the 3 valency of phosphate is given to ammonium. But because ammonium is a composite radical, I have put it in brackets, and outside the bracket I have written 3. Is it clear? So ammonium phosphate becomes NH4 thrice PO4. The numbers which are involved in the formula, like you can see for sodium bicarbonate, I did not say it is NaHCO thrice. I did not say the word thrice because it is attached to only one element, which is oxygen, which is 3. So it becomes NaHCO3. whereas ammonium phosphate becomes NH4 thrice PO4. Do you understand this difference? Why do I sometimes say 3 and why do I sometimes say thrice? I'll say 3 when only it is attached to one element, and I'll use the word twice and thrice when it is outside the brackets. Moving ahead, let us solve a few more questions here. Cuprous bromide. Now here I've very well made it clear that I'm using cuprous. Copper is the element of variable valencies. The two valencies of copper are 1 and 2. The lower valency is 1. So the formula which is given here is cuprous with valency 1. Bromine with valency 1, we get the answer as CuBr. For those who are able to do it, very good. For still people are struggling, not able to understand, you can, I'm allowing you again to see the valency chart and try to relate and get the answer. Because this will be understood only if you practice. Only practice is going to help you here. Moving ahead, one more, copper sulfate. I think copper sulfate is such a common term which we use repetitively. You should be able to give me the answer. Copper is Cu, sulfate is SO4, Cu valency 2, SO4 valency 2. Both the two gets cancelled, so I get the answer as CuSO4. Now the question which might come in your mind is that, ma'am, here you have written copper. So how do I come to know, should I take the valency as 1 or should I take the valency as 2? So as you can see the difference in both the questions which I've given you now. If the valency 1 has to be taken into consideration, they will give the specific name as cuprous. But for valency 2, they might either give you copper or they might give you cupric. But usually the tendency is they are going to write only copper and they are not going to write cupric. But if valency 1 has to be taken into consideration, they will give you the word cuprous. Is it clear? Are you all able to understand this? Okay, come on, take one more. Potassium nitrate. Potassium nitrate. Potassium is a simple one because it's a simple radical. Potassium symbol K, nitrate symbol NO3. So K valency 1, NO3 valency 1. I get the answer as, very well, the answer is KNO3. One more, last one. Last one and little tricky one. Sodium dichromate. Sodium dichromate. You all know sodium is Na, and now you can see the valency chart, get the formula of dichromate. The second last one, which is Cr2O7. Cr2O7 is its formula. So all the numbers are going to be inclusive when you're writing the formula. The charge is 2. That means the charge is negative and the valency is 2. And sodium valency 1. So when you interchange, you get the answer as Na2 Cr2O7. It's an error here. The print has not come because it's dichromate. The answer would be Na2 Cr2O7. Please, students, make the correction here. Do not write the way it is given on the slide. Write the way which I am telling you. It is Na2 Cr2O7. I forgot to mention 2 here. So please make this correction. The answer would be Na2 Cr2O7. Okay, because the question is sodium dichromate. Is it clear? Has everybody understood this? Did you all understand how to write the chemical formulas? With this, we finish with the chapter of measurement of matter. But do not be in a hurry to leave the lecture because I am not revising everything, but I'm just trying to solve the exercise questions which are given in your textbook so that when you're learning, it becomes easier for you to answer. Is it all right? See, if we talk about this chapter from the beginning, if we talk about this chapter which is measurement of matter from the beginning, we spoke about laws of chemical combination, isn't it? In laws of chemical combination, we studied about 2 laws, which is law of conservation of matter and law of constant proportion. I'm just quickly having a recap of what we have done till now. Law of conservation of matter was given by Antoine Lavoisier and law of constant proportion was given by J.L. Proust. Followed by that, we studied about atoms. We studied about atomic size, we studied about atomic mass, we studied about how to represent this atom, that is the symbol. Apart from that, we also knew how to calculate the mass of the atom and the molecular mass of the compound. Along with that, we studied the definitions of symbol, isn't it? And after studying the definitions of symbol, we studied the concept of mole. Now talking about mole, if you remember, we have also solved a lot of numericals related to mole concept. I've tried to cover all type of example, but one question which is given in your textbook, on page number 57, question number 8, that pattern we had not discussed. So quickly, let me take one example from that and help you out with it. So let us see this question here. Page number 57, question number 8, which is, if 0.2 mole of the following substances are required, how many grams of those substances should be taken? But before that, let us quickly have a recap of what we studied in mole. In mole concept, we discussed that 1 mole of any substance is the atomic mass or molecular mass which is expressed in terms of grams. And when I talk about number of moles, we have one formula, which is mass in grams upon molecular mass. All these whiles, the numericals which we were doing, we were calculating number of molecules, isn't it? We were calculating number of molecules. Let us take that example first. This is how we had solved few examples before. How many molecules are there in 32 grams of oxygen? To calculate this, first we calculate the molecular mass of oxygen, which is 32. And how did I get the molecular mass of oxygen as 32? Because one atom, atomic mass of oxygen is 16. So 16 into 2 is going to be 32. So that is the molecular mass of oxygen. Then we use the formula of number of moles, which is mass of oxygen in grams upon molecular mass. Mass of oxygen they have given to us is 32. And the molecular mass which I am getting is also 32. So when I have 32 divided by 32, my answer is going to be 1 mole. So how many molecules are present in 1 mole? That is an easy question now. We don't have to calculate anything, because according to Avogadro's concept, we know that 1 mole of any substance is going to contain 6.022 into 10 raised to 23 molecules. Isn't it? Is it clear to you, everyone? Did you understand how we did this? This is just a recap of what we've done before. We have already solved these kind of numericals. Now moving ahead, this numerical which we have not done, let us try to understand this one. If 0.2 mole, now in this question, students, moles are already given to you. They're asking you to calculate the grams. If anything we have to calculate, first we need to get the question. In this case, the substance which I'm using is sodium chloride. So the first thing what you are going to do is calculate the molecular mass of sodium chloride. How did I calculate the molecular mass of sodium chloride? I took the individual masses. Atomic mass of sodium is 23. Atomic mass of chlorine is 35.5. So when I add both the numbers, I'm easily adding because both the atoms are only 1. So 23 plus 35.5 is giving me 58.5. This is how I got the molecular mass of sodium chloride. And from the formula of moles, we know that number of moles of the given NaCl is mass of NaCl in grams upon molecular mass. Usually we calculate number of moles, but this time number of moles is given to you, which is 0.2. Mass of the sodium chloride is what they're asking you to solve. And molecular mass, so you have already calculated, which is 58.5. So now is it difficult to give me the answer? So what will be the mass of sodium chloride in grams? The mass of the sodium chloride in grams will be nothing but cross multiply 58.5 multiplied by 0.2. So my answer is 11.7 grams. Is it clear? See, mathematic part, the calculation part isn't difficult. What is difficult? To understand the concept. Do not rush in writing. I am giving you time. First, listen to me. The two types of questions which are expected in your exams are, they might ask you calculate the number of molecules, which I showed you in the previous example, or they might ask you calculate the mass in grams. Here I took the example of sodium chloride. Like in this way, various examples are given in our textbook. Other two are magnesium oxide and sodium carbonate. What is the pattern you're going to follow? You're simply going to calculate the molecular mass, and then you are going to use the formula, which is number of moles, and substitute and get the answer. They are not at all difficult, simple mathematical question, and 100% being asked in the exam. So please make sure you practice this and you get full marks in this question. So now you can take your time and finish writing. These are the only two types of questions which can be asked in the exam. Other than that, nothing can be asked. Calculation wise, the questions can be asked about moles. Then they might ask you about calculate the molecular mass, where the atomic masses will be provided to you. Or they can ask you write the chemical formulas. And for chemical formulas, as I've been continuously telling, you have to by heart the table of ions and radicals, because they will not give you the valencies. You are expected to know the valency and get the chemical formula. In this chapter, a lot of brief answers, big answers, by hearting is not required. Here, a lot of concept is important. A lot of concept of chemistry is there. So you need to practice to get these answers here. Is it all right? Have you all written? I assume that by now everybody is finished writing, and we've also finished with our chapter. Hope you all have understood the chapter well, and there are not difficulties. And difficulties will come. Difficulties will definitely come only when you study something. If you just simply listen to me and think that yes, we have understood everything, but when you sit and write, you will not be able to understand. So difficulty will come only when you are writing and practicing. Is it all right? So with this, I finish with my today's class, and I hope everybody has understood the chapter. We'll meet next week or next time when we are starting with the next chapter. Bye, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for listening to me and solving the questions. Bye. Take care and stay safe.